This is Jim Martin, and welcome to Martini and Martin. This is a show about doing things at home while drinking a martini. On our first episode, we're going to learn how to make an 18-inch zippered pillow cover, such as this. To begin, you'll need various supplies. First of all, you'll need fabric, you'll need a pattern, a ruler, a zipper, scissors, a seam cutter, but I'm using a small paring knife because God knows where my seam cutter is, a marker, straight pins, a sewing machine, and a chopstick. To begin, you need to go shopping for fabric, or if you have some, that's great. Now, I was recently in Africa and I found this beautiful fabric here that I'm going to use to make our pillow covers. Now, the first thing you need to do is cut a pattern out. Now, it's a very simple pattern because it's just a square and it's an 18-inch square. Now, to do that, I decided to use Christmas wrapping paper, not because I'm fond of reindeer, but because the back has a grid of 1-inch squares, so I can get nice clean lines, and also my corners will be 90 degrees. So I measured this out, 18 by 18, and I'll place it on my pattern. Now, you may ask, why are you not allowing for seam allowances on your pattern when the pillow is 18 inches? Well, quite frankly, I do want the cover to be slightly smaller, so when the pillow is squished inside, it creates a more fuller, fluffier look for your pillow. So once you place your pattern on your fabric, you're going to want to pin it all the way around. Okay, so I've cut my fabric into 2 squares, and now I'm going to place them back to back. Now, I'm using 2 different fabrics. You don't need to do that, but I think it will make it more interesting. Now, these fabrics, it's very difficult to say which side is the good side and which side is the back side, but you want the good side together on both pieces. On this particular fabric, you can faintly tell that one side is more vibrant than the other. So that's what I'm using as the good side. And again, I'm putting them corner to corner and lining up all the edges. Now, I'm going to take my zipper, which actually is a little long for this piece because you want it to be at least or roughly 2 inches shorter on each end. And this is almost 17 inches, so I want to cut off maybe about 1.5 inches or so. So what I've done is lay it here, and then I've measured how long I want this to be. So again, this is roughly, I'm going to say instead of a 16-inch zipper, it's going to be about 14.5-inch zipper. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch right across this mark that I've made, and that will create a new stop for the zipper. So I'm going to take a sip of my martini, and then I'm going to stitch across this line that I've made. And I'm going to go back and forth over it a few times just to make sure that it's secure. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. And 4. Okay then. And then I'm going to just snip off the excess thread here. So now after I've sewn across the end of the zipper, I'm going to chop it off with some scissors. I'll leave about 1 inch, like that. And then you can see where the line is that I've drawn, and that's where I've sewn. Now I'm going to place that at the edge here and kind of center where my line is that I've now sewn and the end of the zipper on the other end. And just kind of center it there. And then I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to mark the end of the zipper. Let me do this over here. The end of where the zipper stops. Just a little mark right there. And then where I've sewn my seam at the other end. And I'll explain what we're going to do with that in a second. You know, I had to take a little break because the Social Security office just called me. I don't know why. They left a message and I called her back, but the woman only works till 2 o'clock. Okay, so again, I'm going to sew a regular straight stitch from the edge of the fabric down to where I put my mark, and I've got that indicated with a pin right here. And I'm using about a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we'll start this machine, and the thread just fell off, so hold that thought. So I'm going to rethread my needle here, but I'm thinking you should probably thread your needle before you start drinking your martini, because this is, there we go. Nope, let's try this again. There's a little hole. Okay, ta-da, that's in there. Okay, now we're gonna start this again. So 5/8 of an inch on the end, and let us go. Okay, okay. And again, we're just sewing up to the pin, and then when we get to the pin, we're gonna pull the pin out, and then we're going to back up to strengthen that area. Back up a few times because we don't want that to be cut. And then from this point forward, I'm going to make the length of my stitch as long as possible. And we're gonna call that a basting stitch. And then I'm going to sew this all the way down to the next mark. So I'm still not quite sure why the lady from Social Security called me, but it could have to do with my Medicare application that I just submitted. I hope everything's okay with that, but we'll see. I'm not going to lose sleep on it now. Okay, so then I'm approaching my mark, and there it is. And then as soon as I get to the mark, I'm going to go back to a normal stitch. There we go. And then I'm going to back stitch, just to make that nice and firm, and then all the way to the end. Okay then. And then snip snip on this end, and let's clean the threads up on the other end. All right. Okay, so after I've sewn the seam, I took the two pieces to the ironing board, and then I ironed the seam open, as you can see. So I want this to be nice and flat. Now I'm taking my zipper that I've cut down, and I'm centering it again. Make sure that you place the little zipper thingy here face down. The last pillow I made, I put it right side up, and I had to rip the entire thing out. So you're gonna center it, and you're gonna line up the new sewn edge and the zipper thing to the lines that you already drew on there earlier. Of course, I can't see them now, but there we go, right there. And then the center of the zipper is going to be right on the seam. And so you're going to start pinning this down right here, like that. And then all the way down, making sure that this is centered right over the seam. Oh, I went to the dermatologist this morning because I had this spot on my face and I was really afraid it was some type of skin cancer. And actually it turned out to be a frickin' old age spot. So she could not explain fast enough how she could get rid of it. I just said do it. So she froze it off. So hopefully that will go away, but I'm sure I'll be getting more of them. Well, she found some mark on my foot too that I wasn't concerned about, but she kind of was, so we'll see what happens there. All right, so I'm halfway done with this. Let's pin this, looking good, looking good. I mean, dealing with Social Security and old age spots. What else is next? Oh, okay. All right. So then back to the sewing machine, and then we're going to stitch a very long rectangle from one end down one side across and then all the way up again. Okay, so I've got the fabric back in the sewing machine, on the sewing machine, and now I'm going to stitch across at the end of the zipper where I've already placed a stitch, but I'm stitching it onto the fabric now. So foot's down. Now, a lot of times you can use a zipper foot, but I'm not using a zipper foot on my machine. I'm using a regular foot, and then I'm just adjusting the needle over to the left, which on my machine is a 6. So it just shifts the needle over, and I can still use this regular foot, because God knows I don't want to change the foot on the machine. All right, so here we go. We're going to stitch. Always go back and forth first over the zipper, and I like to do that a few times too. And then straight across to, oh, there. And then I'm going to lift and shift. And now I'm going to come down this entire side. And hopefully the zipper is right in the center. Okay, foot on the pedal, and let's go. And down. And now remove pin number 1. And keep going. Remove pin number 2. Now, it would have been easier if I put the pins in the other direction, but oh well. Pin number 3. Pin number 4. Now when you get to maybe an inch or so, make sure your needle's down in the fabric. You're going to lift the foot. I'm going to remove this pin. And you're going to take the zipper head and pull it past the foot. This is very important. I can't think of why, but it really is in the end. And then I'm just going to hold this in place and continue zipping this until I get to the little metal stopper, just past that. And then I'm going to go back and forth just to seal my seam. Okay. And then I'm going to flip again, go this direction. We're going to go towards the end of it. And then I'm going to match up the little metal pieces there, very close together. But I'm just going to hold it in place with my fingers. And then I'm going to lower the foot, and then I'm going to sew across that. Get back. Make sure that I've got it nice and in there. You know, you can't be too tight, okay? And then about there, I'm going to flip again and come down the other side. Oops, I think I threw a pin on the floor. Okay. And then we're going to sew and make sure, because this is open here, make sure that your zipper is very close together. The zipper thing, because the little, what are they called? Teeth. And at this point, raise and kind of move your zipper up, but you don't want to close it all the way. Lower that. And now you're going to zip, zip, zip down here. Ah, now the pins are in the right direction. Okay, I'm coming in on where I did that first stitch, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and I'm done. Zipper in place, all sewn in. But now what I'm going to do is open up the seam that was the basting stitch. Remember, I stitched from here to here with a regular stitch, and then from here down to here with a basting stitch, and then a regular stitch to the end. So you would normally use a seam cutter, but I'm going to use this knife to open this up. So you certainly want to be careful not to cut your fabric. You want to pull slightly apart. Since it's a basting stitch or a big stitch, you can see the thread easily. You want to cut them very gently, you know, without slicing your fingers off. Which again, this is where the Martini part probably doesn't work that well. Okay, so there's one stitch, and that becomes easier. Now, this is a little tricky because you've got to figure out how to open up the zipper, which you have to finagle a little. But the purpose of sewing it shut, it gives you a nice close overlap of your fabrics. So I'm going to fiddle with this and open this up. So I've now ripped the seam open, and I've cleaned up all the loose threads, because you have to do that after you rip the seam. And my zipper is perfectly functional and very neat and tidy. I'm very proud of that. So now we just need to sew the rest of the corners together. So fold it over, and then what you want to do is make sure that this is perfectly flat on this end so that your seams are flattened out like that. And then you're going to match your corners up and pin it all together. Simple, simple. So the lady from Social Security called me back, which odd because she said she only worked till 2 o'clock, but God bless her. And there was a discrepancy between what I said on my application for Medicare and how I filed for Social Security back in 1970. In 1970, I said I was born in the state of Maryland, which is where my parents lived. But technically, I was born in a hospital in Washington, D.C., and that's what I put on my Medicare application, and I believe that's what my birth certificate said. But, you know, in 1970, I was just a stupid kid. I didn't know the difference. So I could either take my birth certificate and go prove that the original application for Social Security was wrong, or I could tell this woman on the phone to just change what I said on my Medicare application. So I went with the easier option. That's what she's doing, and I am now approved for Medicare. Woohoo! I am now officially almost 65 years old, and I'm getting Medicare. I don't know whether to applaud or just lay down and die. Okay, so as soon as I finish this, then we're going to sew these 4 pieces together, and we're done. So now I have all 3 sides, plus the zipper side, all sewn together. And next step is just to turn it inside out. And this is where the chopstick comes in use. Use the chopstick to push out your corners. So you have nice, sharp, 90-degree corners here. See? Like that. So do that all around the side, and the next step is to put the pillow in. All right, so now we've got all of our corners all pushed out. Our pillowcase is complete. The only thing left to do is stuff the pillow in, and you just take the pillow, kind of fold it in half, and then stuff it like you're stuffing a chicken. Let's push it in, all the way in, and feel the other end of it. Put the corners out. It's just like stuffing in a turkey, just like my mom taught me. All right, so that's in there, both ends, and it is filled out, and then zip it closed. Make sure you don't get the pillow caught in the zipper. Look at that, that's a perfect seam on the bottom. And here's my pillow. Just pound it. And doesn't it look great? Ah. So here's to you and to my pillow. See you next time on Martini and Martin.